Welcome to News Now. Our guest today is Sharon McPhail, who's been a U.S. attorney, a Wayne County prosecutor, Detroit City Council member, and so much more. Sharon, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
So you actually ran for mayor too. So I mean, you know as much about Detroit as anybody. And we've had these state of the state. We've had the state of the country, the state of the city. What do you think the state of the city is? We hear a lot about two cities, the neighborhoods versus the downtown. We hear a lot about black and white. We hear about rich and poor. Where do you think the city of Detroit is right now?
Well, you know, it depends on if you're looking at development, because I think all of the development started when Mike Duggan got there because they wanted him. And once they got him, you know, the business community people got him, they were comfortable that, you know, with the development being the way it was. But it depends on if somebody comes in and replaces him and that person doesn't want to blow up the development, which of course you wouldn't, that would be stupid,
right.
Then a new person is going to do pretty much the same thing Mike Duggan's done on that. But in terms of what's happening to the people in the city of Detroit, nothing. It is worse than, I mean, I thought maybe he would do some things in the city for the people who live here. There is no, just look at what they need. They need jobs, right? The executive order, 2001-7, I think, whatever it was, 10-7. I wrote it, but I forgot.
That's all right.
That said that, you know, businesses that come in and get 12-year tax breaks and various other things have to have 51% of the person hours on their job be Detroit residents. They don't have to be black, white, pink, or green. They have to be Detroit residents. Well, apparently that's gone by the wayside. So has the monitoring function on that. There is no other city you can go to where you can walk in from somewhere else, make money off of that city's residents, and the city's residents get nothing. But for the most part, there's a few, you know, you'll get a few business people that they will throw a bone to. But other than that, the people in the city of Detroit have not gotten the jobs that were, you know, thought about and promised. And the, with the exception, I think, of some of the casinos have done a better job of that than the other businesses. And, you know, I was there for the objections around that executive order. We had a meeting, a bunch of us in the mayor's office, to discuss the executive order and the implementation of it. And, you know, I remember the mayor saying to the Walbridge-Aldinger people,
right,
why don't you want to hire Detroit residents? And they said, well, it's not that we don't, it's just that, you know, there aren't enough plumbers to have 51% plumbers. Well, it wasn't a trade by trade, you know.
Right.
You could have 51% and it could all be secretaries or cleaning people or whatever. People need work.
Right.
And the way to find out how bad it is, go to any of the freeways and look at the morning hours when the traffic's coming in, and look at the other side of the road. No traffic. So what you're seeing is there's no availability of work in the suburban areas for Detroit residents. But the other side of the road, everybody's coming in for jobs that are here in the city of Detroit. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, they're trying to feed their families too. I get it. But somebody has got to represent the people who live in Detroit.
I believe the mayor had a theory that he talked about building from the inside out. That, look, we have this beautiful downtown area. We have this downtown area that people do want to come and open restaurants and businesses. If we can do that and they pay their taxes, then we can use those taxes to grow out. Detroit is huge, obviously, big job for anybody.
Yeah.
But do you think that theory makes sense? Or
no, they have tax breaks. If you weren't giving them tax breaks and paying people to move into the city, and they go into apartments and you pay the rent, whatever that money is that's being given to people to move in over at Wayne State area, I think that's where it started. I mean, these are all government funded things, and you're paying for stadiums, you're paying for development, all that money is tax dollars, a great deal of it. So, you know, how can you spend that much on tax dollars? Well, let me tell you what I think the plan is. There's DPS, which is levying taxes and still hasn't collected $1.5 billion on the rebuild schools, but they've spent all the money. There is DPS Community District, which now is going to try to levy more taxes, another bond issue. And there is the $250 million tear down the house bond, right? If those things pass, Detroit will be bankrupt again within 2 years, and Duggan will be gone.
Why would they do that?
That's the plan. Because there is so much money to be made in a bankruptcy. There was tons of money made in the first one, and we weren't bankrupt. How you got 20-some%, I think it is, of the fresh water in the world here, and a water department that's in charge of it, and you're bankrupt? How's it possible?
So when they talk about investing and getting buses working in the neighborhoods, so people who don't have transportation, poor people, can get on a bus and get to
And
work.
go where?
That's what I'm asking.
There's no
Because
work.
when you drive, and I do drive the outskirts of the city, there's Coney Islands and there's liquor stores, and they don't need workers there.
And my
many.
friends at the Free Press many years ago did research and showed that there is no work available for Detroiters outside the boundaries of the city of Detroit. That's why when I was there, we insourced the jobs at workforce development that had been outsourced. And that's why we started doing these training centers, because what was on the horizon was a demolition training center so the city could do its own demolition. And then this business of insurance. You know what auto insurance is for a Detroiter?
A lot.
I got one car, no accidents until recently someone pulled in front of me and put on their brakes. No tickets, $6,000 a year.
They say that some people say
Well, it's
that
5 now.
people aren't don't have the training or education to get the jobs that are available. Is it the responsibility of city council, the mayor's office, city administration to educate people? And are we doing it?
Well, where is the proof of that, number one? But number two, no. The education system, the big issue here is, we know what it is. It's race, and somebody needs to address that and talk about it openly. And, people these days can't be blamed for what happened in the past. You just got to go from here. So you got to figure out how we're going to make things work, and how I think you miss so much when you make judgments about people on the basis of what color they happen to be, because I wouldn't even know you, right?
Right.
So, and you're great. So, seriously, there are so many things that we can do as individuals that would make a difference in this. But if you're not focused on that, or if you're saying it isn't so, look at all the things that, for example, the people in Detroit who are overtaxed on their homes. You're not going to do anything about it? Give them a credit, on the water bill, or do something.
You were a superintendent at a charter school, and so you got to see inside what was going on. So
It was horrible.
And
Kevin.
you know what's going on in Detroit public schools, where they're making mistakes.
15 of the lowest 25 performing high schools in the state of Michigan are in the city of Detroit, public DPS.
But what really needs to happen to turn that around? Because you were turning around the numbers where you were.
Major turnaround, 4% to 82%. 86%, which is an 82%
That could be
improvement
done in other
6
schools that are
years.
failing.
Absolutely, it could. It is on the administrators. It's not the teachers. That's why it's so weird that the way this is talked about. It's not the kids, it's not the teachers, and it's not the parents. It's the administrator of that school. Many people feel like, well, I've made it to superintendent, so now I get to tell you what to do. No, you have to work harder than everybody else in order to make it happen. And when you do, they will come for you. Because as you know, they came for me. I was the #1 performing charter school in the state of Michigan, according to the Michigan, the Mackinac Public Policy Institute, and they came and took my school.
All right, we have to leave it there, but will you come back and continue this conversation?
Absolutely.
There's so much more to talk about.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be right back with more news now after this. She's a product of the Detroit Public Schools, a graduate of Cooley High School. She started her career working in education, and then she ran for office and became the state representative for the 10th District, which is part of Northwest Detroit and Redford Township. Representative Leslie Love, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It is really nice to meet you. I've not met you before.
I know. Nice to meet you too.
You're a local kid. I like that.
Yes.
You grew up in Detroit. What was that like for you growing up? Was this the kind of thing where you knew you were going to go into public office or education, or was this the thing where...
Well, no, I knew that I wanted to be a dentist,
Okay.
a teacher, and a movie star when I was younger. That's all I knew for
Dentist,
sure.
a teacher, and a movie star.
Right.
I also wanted to be a dentist and ended up not quite a movie star, but I have been on TV. So
Well,
whatever,
you're a
right?
star of this show.
But,
but politics was never in the option. But I grew up influenced by this TV show called Spin City.
Okay.
And Michael J. Fox was like the
Oh,
brain
yeah.
behind the mayor of Spin City. And I thought of myself more in that position, like I'd be the great advisor that really knows how this thing is going
Right.
on. Yeah, but then I was called to serve, so here I am.
And you've been doing it for a couple of years now, right?
I'm in my 3rd term.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And so when you think about your constituents, which is what you're supposed to be doing,
Right.
how is the reality versus what we think happens? Because when I talk to people out in the streets. So like nothing ever really gets done.
Yeah.
They just go in and they fight with each other, and the Democrats and Republicans fight, and nothing ever gets done. You've been there now enough years to know, does it actually work, or what does the process look like?
I totally get that. And that's how I felt before serving, and one of the motivations to serve. Because it's like when you work in Lansing, we work on Mount Olympus, and, it's so detached from regular day-to-day life of citizens. So it was my priority to make sure I did a lot of interaction with community. So even this morning, before coming to you, I was in Redford, at Redford Union High School, which is in my district, meeting with 11th and 12th graders there to talk to them about what they're experiencing as young adults and their connection to the adults that make decisions that involve them, and to get some feedback. So I'm always back in district, whether I'm holding town halls to help people navigate financial situations, or to get information about human trafficking, or to prevent senior fraud abuse. So I'm very, very engaged in district. I'm not just a Lansing politician. It's very important to me to make sure that the people see me and see the connection of how government is used to serve people.
So you're on the inside, we're on the outside looking in. For me, looking in at Governor Whitmer's first year, I kind of saw her run and get elected on fixing the roads. And then I saw the Republicans say, the gas tax ain't going and this budget isn't happening. What was it actually like from the inside, trying to get a budget and trying to get a plan for the roads?
So 2019 was an incredible, awesome, overwhelming, stressful, strangle someone year. So we started the conversation moving auto insurance no-fault reform, and we thought we had this great kumbaya moment. We're all gonna work together. We negotiated, we fought, we struggled on that, and then we had the conversation about the roads. And then it felt like the Republicans had flipped the script. They really wanted to see this auto insurance reform, and everybody came to the table and really negotiated fairly on that. But then they were very much opposed to Governor Whitmer's 45 cent, the entire plan. People focus on the 45 cent, but there are also residuals that were very positive to giving people, like increasing the earned income tax insurance, giving more towards revenue sharing. So, but we just focused on the 45 cents, and it's like, no more taxes, which is pretty much what Republicans' mantra, no more taxes. So I think she came back this year, as you saw in the State of the State, to say, I am not done trying to create options to help us fix our roads. So while the legislature, you argue back and forth, we know that there's a critical need right now, and I'm here to address it. And where the Republicans did not offer a real sustainable plan.
Well, I think they did. They wanted to take money from other areas and other departments and move it to the roads and say, we got to do a better job in these other departments. It wasn't that they didn't have any ideas, but their ideas were not. They
didn't raise the $2.5 billion that we needed, and it wasn't sustainable. It was really like, if you're selling bridges and airplanes, that's a one-time for that project, when we were trying to come up with a solution that will give us revenue ongoing and increase with time. But also we have to come up with a different way to do this, because as cars become more energy efficient, the pump won't be the place to get that. And so new ideas of putting trackers, for example, on cars. So if you're driving, you're charged by how much you drive. There's a special fee for that. So all kind of ideas were generated.
There's different ideas, but what we have right now is a bond. We're going to borrow the money, which I don't love the idea of borrowing money, because I don't want my kids to pay it back. I'd rather try and find money where we already have it, but that's what we're going to do. And borrowing the bond money is not going to take care of the local roads. It's going to take care of the highways. So don't both parties still have to come together and figure out how to fix the roads?
So that's the longer term and larger conversation is around how to create a more sustaining plan to fund the roads. But the bond is really like, we are in, and I don't think people will realize this until we have the spring thaw of the critical need we have in our state right now. every MDOT, County Road Association continues to put before us stats about the status of our bridges and roads. We have bridges that are in such disrepair.
They're falling down as you drive under
We've
them.
had to close them because we don't want anyone to die trying to drop their children off to school or get to work trying to cross a bridge. And so the bond is to take care of those state trunk lines that are most heavily traveled with our trucks, with traffic. Those are your state trunk lines.
So do we have to raise taxes to fix the roads, or
We
can
have
we
to
find
raise
money with what we're
the
already paying?
reality is, Kevin, we have to generate new revenue.
Taxes. And
Tax, and this is a combination. New revenues comes from taxes and fees. So from your registration for your car to a new fee on the pump, maybe.
I think the most reports will indicate that most states in this area spend more money on roads than we do. So we're going to get into that. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the bills you're trying to get passed and how they will make a difference to you. We'll be right back with more news now. Welcome back. Our conversation continues with State Representative Leslie Love of the 10th District. So you are working on some things. We have a very important election coming up here, 2020.
Right.
Everybody says Michigan is really important. And you're doing some things to try and help with the election process.
Absolutely.
Tell me what some of the ideas
Right.
you
So
have.
after Proposal 3 passed, which allows a lot more voter access, same-day voting, and it's a increase of no reason absentee voting. And so the response from clerks they were receiving more applications for absentee voter ballots. And we wanted to make sure we balanced the equation and help the clerks. And so I have a 5-bill package to help do that. And considering the city of Detroit and Wayne County has the largest voter base of any other area in the state of Michigan, I wanted to make sure the voice of our city clerk and county clerk was heard in the conversation. And so those bills, one, allow for earlier processing the day before election to process the ballots. The second would allow for shifts. So clerks, if you've ever worked election day, it's a very long day. And so this will allow for clerks to have the option to offer shifts. I've asked for allocation of $3 million to pay for additional equipment. $1.5 million for new hires or to pay election day workers, those absentee workers, a greater amount of money. And then the fifth one is to consider Election Day a holiday and to encourage employers to give a half-day pay to their workers so that they can participate in the democratic process.
You know, we see long lines in Detroit, and sometimes there'll be problems at the ballots. Does more absentee voters help with the whole system? Would that be ideal for
more voters are great. We want people to come out and vote, and I think the greater idea is to not create barriers. If you can't make it to the poll, whether you're sick or infirmed, whatever the reason, you're going to be out of town, we want to make sure that you're able to participate. And so absentee is great for those who want to exercise that tool. It's available there for a voter, so there's no barriers for them to have access to the ballot. But also going in, I really like going to the actual location.
Do too. I always
It's
go.
something about the energy and the spirit. You've got all those people handing you stuff. I feel like a star. I walk the red carpet like, yes, I'll take it. I'll take it. Vote for you, okay? And it's a lot of fun. And then you go in and then you get the sticker at the end.
Right.
You know, you get
right.
a sticker. Yeah, it's all about the sticker.
I voted.
Right. And then everyone proudly wears their I voted sticker all day long, like, yes, I was there today. And so that creates this really great energy that I like to see. Election Day should be a celebration. When you think about the journey for people to have a right to have access to vote, man, the fact that we've had that Civil Rights Amendment, the Voter Rights Act that helped that, I cannot ever forget the journey it took so that I can just simply walk into that polling location and cast my ballot.
What makes me sad is when I go in and I vote and it says you're voter number 113 or something. I'm like, why am I not voter 10,013?
Yeah.
Do you really think half a day off or a full day off on election day would really make those numbers jump, or would it just be more time off work?
I think it will give people motivation and ability to say, and then it doesn't mean that the employer has to give them the pay, but to say, can I get some time so I can go vote? That is not counted against me, because between a person's daily life, you've got to drop off a child to daycare. I'm going to make sure I have to get to work. When do I have a chance to vote?
Right.
Am I, depending on your shift, but if my employer says, I'll give you paid amount of time to go out and cast your vote and come back with your sticker.
You think people want to? They just
yes, they
can't
want
get
to.
there.
They want to, and I think the other part of it is the excitement that candidates create about it, the excitement that the clerks create about going out to vote. It's election time, and not this overbearing, the boogeyman is going to come get you. And I think sometimes when we talk about elections, or even when we talk about the census, it's always this scary thing of who's not going to be counted and whatever.
Right.
I was like, let's speak light to this. Let's talk about what great opportunity it is for you to go and vote. And you know what? If you don't want to come to the poll, you don't have to be bothered. You can vote absentee. And so that's the energy. We want people to feel inspired and that they vote count. And so when you asked me earlier, is there a disconnect? It's not a disconnect if you get to vote. You went out today and I said, I participated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty groovy.
All right, so we're going to move from groovy to something a little tougher.
Okay.
You're also trying to get some improvements in the adult entertainment, and human trafficking is such a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
What are you trying to do with this massive problem and a big
Right.
problem for your district?
Well, there's two separate things. I am working with, last year, Kevin, I did a deep dive. I was working on some legislation to reform adult entertainment in the state of Michigan. And so the city of Detroit has several clubs, but outside this, in the city of Detroit is probably the municipality with the greatest rules and restrictions and
Right.
law and guidance around how to operate these businesses. But if you just go into Dearborn, it's, the wild, wild west, and it's not consistent from one place to the other. And there are no real rules on our books about adult entertainment, except for one, that you can't have full nudity and alcohol.
Right.
This is a business that's been around for a long time, but it's lawless. And these are legitimate business owners. The people who perform in these locations are legitimate professionals, and let's treat them like such. Make sure you're licensed and you participate in our economy by paying your taxes, and that's documented. And so we want to do that, but we also want to make sure people are safe. And unfortunately, the industry has had this dark shadow on it of being a place where prostitution, human trafficking has taken place, and really kind of a harbor recruiting location for that. And to be honest, most of them are really great. They're good actors. They're good players in this. And so we want to identify those legitimate, good actors to say we're responsible citizens. This is a form of entertainment. It is a business, but they're also regulated by the state. And there are certain things that we do and do not do, or can and do not allow in this industry. And so we want to standardize. I want to standardize that across the state. And so my bill actually develops a committee, a commission to make a recommendation to the legislature to how to do that. And it involves entertainers, owners, managers of these venues.
All right, thanks. Put a little light on it, and
Yeah.
hopefully everyone will be safer and
Right.
there'll be more regulation. That's our show for tonight. For News Now, I'm Kevin Dietz. Have a good night.